Story 1. In nursing school, you have clinical days. The day before clinical, you have to go to the hospital and pick a patient you'll work with the next day. You also have a chance to work as a CN a while in school to gain more experience and make a little money, because it is difficult to work full-time and go through nursing school. There were 2 hospitals in my small town. I worked at Hospital A in the ICU as a CNA. My clinicals were in the larger hospital, Hospital B. I worked a shift at my hospital and ran over to the other one across town to pick my patient and get my pre-clinical work done. It was about 30 minutes after 7 when I got there. Most hospital shifts you work are 12 hours, 7 to 7. I knew I was going to be on a med-surg floor, so I got on the elevator to ride up and looked through my paperwork to find out what unit I'd be at the next day. A lady in a pantsuit with a hospital badge was already on the elevator and gave me a look like I'd peed in her Cheerios. Okay? I just moved to the side and finally found my paper letting me know what floor and unit I needed to go to. In a really ugly tone, the pantsuit asked me, "Where are you headed?" Staying polite, "I'm heading to 3N. She slammed the button and I just said, "Thank you." As we were riding, she turned to me and started chewing me out. "It's not appropriate for you to be coming in 20 minutes after shift change. We've been understaffed all day and those units are slammed right now." I just kind of stared at her for a second and thought, I'm not going to be disturbing the nurses, and if I have to wait on a chart, that's fine. I don't intend on interrupting the report. But I just said, "Okay?" If anything, her face got angrier. My floor arrived and she stepped out with me and kept pace with me as I headed to the nurse's station. I went to the side and took a look at the assignment board to see if anyone had a diagnosis I hadn't worked with before. Then sat down out of the way and waited quietly because the charge nurses were still discussing assignments. When they finished, I'd ask the charge nurse if there was a patient I should pick. I'd do this because sometimes there were interesting procedures, or I'd get a chance to practice my skills the next day. As I was waiting, Pantsuit Lady watched me, and when she saw me sit down, she immediately snapped her fingers at me and pointed down to the floor and said, "You, come here." The voice was nasty enough that it stopped several people mid-report to find out what was going on. I stood up and approached her, and she grabbed my sleeve and pulled me over closer to the charge nurses. Ignoring me and talking directly to the charge nurses, she proceeded to tell them that I was their aide, and she wanted them to make sure I was written up for being late. I realized then that she thought I worked there. I was a lot less confrontational or aggressive then. But I never really got the chance to say anything as she jerked her hand away from me and wiped it like she'd just touched poo, looked at me with a face I can only describe as sour lemon smugness, and walked away. The charge looked at me and said, "We already have an aide, but sure, could use you. Let me see how." She trailed off as I held out my hand and said, "I don't work here. I'm with School X, and I'm here to pick out a patient for clinicals tomorrow." Does that lady always treat people like they're dogs? The charge nurse stared at me for a second and then started laughing and said, "Stupid witch. Don't mind her. We all hate her." She then asked, "How much longer do you have?" I replied that I will graduate in 6 months. I also asked if they had any interesting procedures, or if they had a patient that a one-to-one student nurse would make easier to handle. She also asked where I planned on working after I graduated. I just looked down the hallway where the pantsuit had gone and just said, "Well, not here," which made her laugh even more. I had a truly relaxing clinical the next day with a sweet elderly lady with dementia and a minor medical condition. We folded laundry together to keep her busy and to keep her from pulling at her surgical sites. What was really fun about it is that the next semester, when representatives come to try to recruit you to the hospital, I got to reply to a question about why I wasn't interested in their hospital. I gotta say that I didn't appreciate the way they treated their staff, and tell the story. There was recognition in their eyes when I described the lady, and they shook their heads when I told them about the event. Plus, I knew that my hospital was waiting for me to graduate so I could come to work in the ICU which was my dream at the time, and it was for a bit more pay than the other hospital was offering anyway. Story 2. Backstory. Many years ago in rural Appalachia and coal country lived a cluster of families on a holler. Jim and Betty owned a mobile home and had their daughter Kirsten, me, with them. This mobile home had 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, but it was sufficient enough for shelter. During the middle 1980s, a recession hit Appalachia hard, and Jim found work in another part of the country. In moving, he approached Tilda, Betty's sister, and Larry, her husband, to look after the mobile home and collect rent for anyone that wanted to lease the mobile home. A rent amount was agreed to and would be adjusted for inflation and the cost of living for the area. The money was to be deposited into a savings account, except for the money needed for necessary repairs and receipts kept. Jim and Betty trusted their siblings with this and moved, trusting that this money would be part of their retirement fund. I was privy to these conversations, but did not pay that much attention to them at the time. Shortly after leaving Appalachia, a renter was found, and Jim and Betty were glad to know that something was coming about from the land in their home area. Then Mike, Larry, and Tilda's son moved into the mobile home, and Jim stipulated that the rental agreement did not change even with his nephew renting the mobile home. After Mike moved out, Sonny, Larry, and Tilda's daughter moved in and stayed for several years. Betty asked Tilda several times about the rent, knowing Sonny was very unreliable with rent in the past, and was assured that between Section 8 and food stamps that the rent was being paid on time, and there were no issues. A few repairs had been done, but the receipts were stored in the safe deposit box where the savings account was. Fast forward a few more years, Sonny finally moves out, and there are a few more renters, and then the taxes are not getting paid. The mobile home will not pass for Section 8 any longer. As we, Jim, Betty, and I, have been told repairs had been made over the years, we find this odd and inquire again to Tilda, who states this was all a misunderstanding. Once again, Betty trusts her sister and is relieved when we get the tax receipt in the mail. This is very important later. Another few years pass, and Tilda dies. Jim and Betty attend the funeral, and Betty makes a gesture to assist with some of the expenses. Larry agrees, and Betty requests access to the savings account that should have at least tens of thousands of dollars by this point, not including interest, to only find out it has never existed. All of the paperwork has been fraudulent and/or forged. Remember that tax receipt? Another forgery. Betty refused to fight. She had just lost her sister. Still, Jim is livid, as am I. Sonny was always abusive to me, and to find out she had been living off my parents for free, while receiving Section 8 for rent, and getting food stamps sent me over the edge on top of the missing retirement funds. Que revenge. So knowing everything was fraudulent from the beginning, Jim and I attempted legal means first to get revenge on this thief. We were met with walls of red tape, and with states separating us, it was an uphill battle with a slim chance of winning. Plus, the attorney fees would drain any winnings, and then more. First, I put my piece into action. Against Sonny, I filed claims of fraud against the Section 8 anonymously and SNAP benefits, given that there was absolutely no proof of rent being paid to the homeowner or the custodian. Larry was stupid enough not to write out a fraudulent receipt for when his daughter lived there. Next, I filed against Larry for tax evasion and Social Security fraud, since Sonny was claiming to be paying him the rent money via Section 8. This was income. Since he was not claiming this income on his tax forms, he was double-dipping into the Social Security system and avoiding paying taxes. I did the same for the time Mike was paying rent. Although he did not claim government benefits, he just paid rent. The next stage was to notify their local church about the shady dealings with family. Their faith is big on lay ministers and credibility. I told anyone and everyone I could from the church directory about what had happened. I even showed the fake tax receipt. The last bit was the most nefarious. After ensuring that Larry was visiting Sonny and the house he owned was empty, a rented car was used, and while Betty drove, Jim used a .22 rifle to shoot holes in the roof, the AC compressor, the garage doors, and anything that was laying in the yard and not immediately noticeable. We wanted the burn to last so no windows were shot out or anything evident from the start showed. Aftermath. Sunny is now being investigated for multiple charges or fraud. Her side business has been closed due to the sweeping allegations that money will not be allocated as intended. Her applications for small business loans and COVID funds have been denied. Criminal charges are being whispered, but I do not think anything will come about with that portion. Larry has been found guilty of overpayment by the Social Security Administration and no longer receives benefits. He now lives with Sunny and no longer has his truck, camper, boat, or ATVs. Unfortunately, once again, criminal charges are not pending. Larry Jr., another son of Larry and Tilda, has moved into the old home that was shot up. The roof had several places where hail or other debris punched through and made it leak. The siding had similar damage, some of the bullets, and they finally figured out what it was, pierced some of the old PVC plastic plumbing. He has spent a fortune fixing the roof, plumbing, and siding where a lot of little holes were. I do not know if he has tried the AC yet, and I will be delighted to find out if it malfunctions as severely as I hope. Story 3. So sister-in-law was very disappointed and angry that I didn't bow down to her every whim and pay for a holiday. For those who read my first post, know that I'm well off, thanks to hard work and some luck. We had some FM flying monkeys come in because of my sister-in-law. Most backed down, understood where we stood, and left us alone. Unfortunately, the whole family of my DH now knows that we have a bank account with $$ on it. As sister-in-law had called a lot of family members to complain and spill the beans, they began talking amongst themselves and their children. Some of the aunts, uncles, and cousins didn't think it was fair that I paid for some college funds for some of the children of my cousins and that I paid for a family holiday. To note, I only have college funds for the children of cousins who we have a close relationship with. That's about 6 cousins with around 12 kids. I've been in this family for almost 20 years, and I only see the majority of the aunts, uncles, and cousins at the yearly or biannual family reunion if everybody comes. I haven't seen some of them in around 5 to 10 years. A couple of days after the fallout with sister-in-law, they made an A&U call, something they never do. I put my phone on speaker as I was busy folding the laundry. They ask how everything is going, how we were holding up during COVID, and such. We exchange some experiences, and then they both go like this. This is the start of the conversation. A&U, listen, we hear you have some college funds set up for some of the children of certain cousins. Is that true? Me, yes, that's true, I'm no liar. A&U, is it true that you took mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law 1, sister-in-law 2, and family with you on holiday? Me, yes. A&U, you also have a holiday home? Yes. Me, we do. But why do you want and need to know? A&U, we never knew you had so much money. Me, well, a lot of hard work, sacrifices, dedication, and luck were part of it. A&U, aha. Well, you have to pay for our grandchildren's college funds as well. And we want to go on a holiday with our children too. We deserve it too. Me, shocked silence. A&U, we're family, so you have to pay. Me, less shocked silence. A&U, yes, we want college funds for your 6 grandchildren, each consisting of $800,000, and we want a holiday home like yours, but in location X. We already have one we want. We'll send you the information, and that also goes for our family holiday. We're family, and since you have the money, you can pay for us too. Me pissed of silence. They continue to rant that they deserve it because they're family, and family takes care of each other. My husband, meanwhile, had heard everything and was getting angrier. I had pressed the record button halfway through the conversation and asked them to repeat their demands. I eventually asked them if they had more to say, which they hadn't. I just flat out said that it wasn't going to happen. They might think they're entitled to my money, but they aren't. I quoted the phrase they and many of the family members gave us when hubby and I didn't have the money and were in a tight spot because we had a health scare. We asked every family member if we could borrow some money and pay it back. Only 3 of the 9 aunts and uncles helped us, and we paid them back. The quote, "It is your responsibility to have and save enough money for the care, well-being, and education of your family. If you can't, then you don't deserve them. We won't be giving you any money." Stunned silence on their side. I told them to relay the message to the rest and not to call us with such demands, and I hung up the phone. Hubby was very proud. In the weeks that followed, some of the aunts, uncles, and cousins called with those aunts and uncles who helped us in our time of need and told us to say that it is our money and that they have seen plenty of it and don't ask for more. One cousin called and asked for a certified loan for a down payment on a house, something I have agreed to. They had the majority saved but came short of $1,000. They had to pay for it sooner, as they could get the house sooner. Just now, I saw that I received the first half of it. That also raised hell. Then, with the aunts, uncles, and cousins, we had a Zoom call, and I explained to them my reasons for not doing this. I told them that they could always come when they truly needed financial help, but under legal contracts so that neither party would feel themselves screwed over. A cousin who borrowed money even showed the certified or notarized loan. Most seemed to understand. They are not entirely happy, but they knew they could come for help. But for some, it wasn't. Then came the cherry on top. I came home last week on a weekday to find a lot of parked cars on an otherwise almost empty street. I had to pass my house in order to park somewhere else, and around 15-20 aunts, uncles, and cousins had gathered in the front yard. So much for social distancing. Afterwards, there were 3 aunts, 3 uncles, and some cousins and their spouses. I parked the car and walked back home. Now here is something that few people know. I have security cameras around my home that record sound as well. Another thing that a few people know: don't mess with me. I am told that my right hook is very painful. So while walking back, I called the non-emergency line of our local police station. I told them the situation and told them that crap might hit the fan. If they could come and assist in case it got out of hand, they would send some cops. And crap hit the fan. The moment I stepped in sight of people, they started screaming, cursing, and telling me to pay up, or they would make sure that I'd pay, one way or another, all the while cornering me. Some of them poked their fingers close to my face and in my chest and arms. I told them multiple times to stop what they were doing and leave. Sometime through this, more cops were called by some neighbors as well, and when they arrived, they were trying to get to me. Then one uncle made a mistake. He slapped me. A man of about 6'3" slapped me. A woman of just 5'2" across the face, in full view of the cops. The crowd went silent as he put his face almost in my face and went on a rant that I had to obey him as one of the elders of the family, all the while with his hand raised as he would slap me again. He couldn't continue his rant. I knocked him to the ground. He stayed down, not unconscious but quite rattled and stunned that I had punched him. This was apparently what the cops needed as well. The family members were stunned, and the cops managed to get them away from me. They were pissed. A couple of the aunts, uncles, and cousins managed to make a run to their cars and drive away. The rest got to meet with some very angry cops, some fines for breaking social distancing rules, and the expectation that charges might be pressed against them. To shorten the novel already, I'm fine. I had some bruised fingers, and my uncle had a broken cheekbone. My lovely cameras are now in the hands of the dog. The other family members have distanced themselves from the crap that happened. To be honest, I feel really crappy. I feel like dividing a family because I just don't hand out my money. Hubby says that this is money that I worked hard for, so I get to decide what happens. Still, I'm thinking of setting some college funds aside for the rest of the children, but I'm doubting that. It would also seem that I don't stand my ground and can be persuaded with violence, threats, and harassment. I'm so sick of it. Some answers to your questions. I've pressed charges against my uncle for the little love he gave me. Thankfully, my uncle has not filed countercharges for the love I gave him in return. I've been told he asked for anger management courses and a psychological evaluation without prompts. His statement is that he got carried away and felt he was being egged on. He also wrote that he was extremely sorry and never meant to hurt me. I don't know what to believe. I know this behavior is out of character for him. He and his wife also contacted my lawyer with a written apology. All those present had to give statements, and one red thread emerged. They were there because the aunt and uncle who called me first, the ones from this post, had said they all should see if they could convince me. As for charges concerning the others who were present, my lawyer is looking to see if they can get charges to stick for harassment. He is also looking to see if the instigators can be charged with a number of things. That guy is having a field day. He loves this. Those who were not involved have sent texts, called, and sent me emails telling me that they're sorry for the behavior of their spouse, sibling, or parent. They have not asked me to drop charges or anything, though, just apologies. Story 4. I live in an older apartment complex, but I don't mind because it has security and nice amenities. Most folks own their units, but some rent them out, and I got a great deal for renting during the pandemic, which is way below the normal rate it would be. Even though it is older, the average unit sells for over $1 million due to the current housing market, so it's a lot of older folks who bought when it's cheap, new money, and middle-class renters. It can be a hassle getting up to my apartment from the street since it's 2 elevator rides, street to security and security to apartment. When it's super busy though. Right now, only one household at a time can be in the elevators since they aren't big enough for social distancing, which can take even more time. Management also modified the elevators so that they don't stop if someone is already in them to avoid people trying to hop in while you are going to your floor. So now it doesn't really matter if you press the up or the down button. All it does is call an elevator and you can go wherever. This was sent in an email to everyone in the complex. I'm heading back to my place after walking my dog with my headphones on, a purchase I saved up a long time for and use daily, including for work. We get to the first set of elevators, and there is an older couple and a middle-aged lady Karen waiting. She's a typical WASP for the building, pearls, diamond earrings, big wedding ring, fancy clothes. Probably has a husband that's a senior design engineer or something while she is a marketing manager. I see that only the up button is pressed, so I push the down button to call another elevator and return to my spot in line. I know that once their elevator leaves, I can press the up button again and save everyone some time, as now 2 more post-dog walk folks are behind me. The older couple leave in their elevator, and then the second one comes. My glasses are quite foggy at this point, but I see Karen waving for me to take it, so I pull off my headphones. Me. You were here first, no worries, I'll catch the next one. Karen, it's going down, it's for you. Me? Oh, I was just calling another Ali. Karen, don't you see the line? Get in the elevator. She's being rude. She doesn't know how the elevators work now, even though it's been a year. I decide it's not my problem to explain why she is wrong. Put on my headphones and get in, then punch floor 1 to get to the security desk. While the doors are closing, she must have then pressed the up button as they open back up. I press the door close button and hear a loud, "What?" over my music. Karen then sprints into the elevator and sees that I am going up. Karen, oh, so that's it. You couldn't wait, so you lied. You skipped me. This is my elevator, get out. While holding her hand over the door sensor so they don't close. Me, asterisk, pauses music on my headphones, asterisk. I said I would catch the next one, but you insisted. Karen must have thought I was turning my music up and taking a stance on this elevator miscommunication, because she then starts grabbing at my headphone and smacking me in the face. Karen, take those off. This is my elevator, you liar. Screw you, you jerk. Get out of my elevator now. My 40-pound cattle dog is deaf, but he isn't stupid. He started barking and growling in full force, causing Karen to jump back with my headphones in her hands. I'm dragging him out of the elevator when she then runs forward and kicks him square in the stomach. She throws my headphones to the ground, stomps on them, and kicks them out of the elevator, and takes her ride up. I'm freaking out. The other people who were waiting in line are freaking out. All for an elevator. Thankfully, after about 20 minutes, my dog gets up and is fine but skittish. One of the folks in line must have told security what happened because one of the guards came down to talk to me. Police have been called, all the security cams are being pulled, and Karen has been identified and asked to wait upstairs. I give my statements and we ride up together to security. Karen is there along with her husband and the two folks who were behind me. Yep, he's definitely some sort of upper management techie with his button-up tucked into his dark blue jeans. I ask if I can put my dog in my apartment, do so, and return. The husband asks me how much the headphones were. I say $400. I used a coupon code, and he hands me the money from his wallet. I quickly take it and put it in my pocket. Karen is looking smug. I guess this isn't the first time money has solved a situation she got in. But did she forget she didn't just break my headphones? The police ask if I want to press charges. I say yes, and she starts yelling at me. Her husband is holding her and trying to drag her away from the police and me while she throws insults and swear words one after another. When she starts yelling that she hopes she hurts my dog and how she is going to do something to him, the police use their taser and take her down to the patrol with her husband following behind. From what I understand, she is being charged with assault, animal cruelty, assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, and lastly, public intoxication. I can't wait for the trial, and I hope everyone who saw it testifies. All this for a miscommunication and saving 3 minutes waiting for an elevator. Story 5. I believe this story qualifies as an example of malicious compliance. One person's strict adherence to the exact wording of a policy led another individual to follow that same policy in a way that ultimately achieved the original goal and highlighted the true intention behind the request. Recently, my parents experienced a devastating house fire. Although the house did not burn entirely to the ground, an important detail, it was deemed a total loss due to the extensive heat, smoke, and structural damage. Thankfully, they had excellent replacement insurance, which, while not eliminating the challenges of a long restoration and replacement process, put them in the best possible position given the circumstances. In addition to their homeowner's insurance, my parents also had an appliance service plan that they paid for monthly. This plan covered all their appliances, from kitchen essentials to laundry machines, as well as items like their chest freezer and mudroom refrigerator. The company would send a technician to repair any malfunctioning appliance, and, if it couldn't be fixed, replace it. My parents had chosen the most comprehensive coverage available. After the fire, the house was uninhabitable, so my parents called the service company to cancel the plan and inquire about prorating their current payment cycle. My mother explained the situation to the customer service representative, detailing how they were dealing with the aftermath of a house fire and staying in temporary housing. However, the representative told her that the company could not prorate the current month's payment or allow an early cancellation. Essentially, they would be required to continue paying for coverage for another 45 days. Remaining calm, my mother tried to reason with the representative. She acknowledged the prorating policy, but asked if they could at least cancel the service for the upcoming payment cycle, given the exceptional circumstances. The representative responded, "I'm happy to cancel the service effective today if that's what you want, but you will still have to pay for this month and the next." For context, it's never a good idea to test my mother's patience, especially in situations like this. With a calm but determined tone, my mother replied, "No, we're not going to cancel a service we still have to pay for. Instead, I'd like to file a claim on all our covered appliances." The representative paused, seemingly caught off guard, and then responded, "You can't file claims on appliances destroyed by fire." My mother, always a step ahead, clarified, "Oh, the house was damaged, but the appliances were not destroyed. Since our plan remains active through next month, I'd like to schedule a service technician to inspect, repair, or replace each of our covered appliances as necessary." After another pause, the representative asked her to hold. A few minutes later, a supervisor came on the line. This individual, perhaps more equipped to assess the situation, promptly informed my mother that, given the circumstances, the company was willing to make an exception and allow them to cancel the plan early without any additional charges. "Thank you," my mother replied, satisfied with the resolution. For anyone wondering why my parents didn't pursue the malicious compliance to its full extent, they achieved the outcome they initially sought. Further action would have been unnecessary, especially since the appliances would ultimately be addressed through their homeowner's insurance. The focus, after all, was on practicality, not spite. Story 6. For some context, me and my entire friend group have had problems with bullies at our high school ever since we could remember, but we mostly ignored the problem altogether. About a few months ago, Ali, one of the girls that always bullied us, decided to directly target my closest friend, D. It wasn't just some simple offhand comments, it was an entire Instagram page created to body shame and consistently bully D. First it was comparing her to a whale, then posting unsolicited photos of D without her even knowing. Ali kept posting and never seemed to stop. Whenever Dee would see the account and what was in it, she would burst into tears. I hated seeing my best friend feel like absolute dirt because of some pathetic girl. I knew Dee didn't deserve any of it. She's one of the nicest and honest people I've ever met. She helps anyone without even questioning it. I decided to do something about the page, about Ali altogether. My friend group went around the school asking every person who we knew was close to Ali, or at least was considered to be friends with her, about things she had done in the past. I uncovered a lot of dirt on her. Her friends weren't ashamed of what they were doing or what they had done. They just had never revealed it directly, but they would take any chance to brag about it and be like Regina George wannabes. I finally had proof that Ali was the one running the page bullying Dee. One of her friends felt bad about it and sent me pictures that showed Ali was the creator of the page. I told everything to our school counselor. She contacted Ali herself and got her to take the page down. She had to do over 100 hours of community time after the counselor found out. I decided to reveal what Ali and her friends had done. I revealed it to my classroom. Sharing secrets with a bunch of teenagers and spreading it was the one thing I knew would happen, so I just let it happen. By the end of the school year, almost everyone knew what Ali had done. Almost no one wanted to interact with her, or even look at her. The only time anyone would interact with her was to make offhand comments or look at her weirdly. She felt so ignored that she ended up moving out of town altogether, not before without picking a fight with me about how my friend group ruined her life, about how it was our fault her boyfriend wanted nothing to do with her, about how we were childish and could have just solved the problem by talking to her. I told her I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't understand why she would direct the page at Dee in the first place. Ali just told me she was bored, and Dee was already antisocial, so only our friend group would care about the page. Her parents hadn't even known about the entire situation. I found her mom's Instagram and sent her all the proof of what her daughter had done. Her mom grounded her and took away all her privileges, phone, car, everything. She left the school a while after that. I don't know what happened after she moved, since it's been around a year since it happened, but I can't say I'll ever regret what I did.